Tired of this happening to you? Then maybe you should try living in Edo, Japan. Have you ever been in the early modern world and thought to yourself, I wonder what the best country is? Well, in the next 10 minutes, we're going to tell you why it's Japan. You'll see the overarching peace in the Edo period brought on by a unified and imperialist shogunate, the flourishing economy, which resulted from a focus on agricultural productivity, and from this, the development of a vast and unique culture enabled by Japan's semi-isolation. Now let's hear from the shogun himself.
Hi, my name is Tokugawa Ieyasu. I unified Japan under one shogunate, called the Tokugawa shogunate. It was at the Battle of Sekigahara that I did this. It was a pretty cool battle. We defeated the Hideyori loyalists and unified Japan under a single shogunate. I brought peace to Japan for the next 2.5 centuries. And I created a largely imperialist government, or feudal society. My shogunate also really hated Christianity. We really hated Christianity. So we banned it, and the act of seclusion cut off Japano from the Western world for the next 200 years. Wow. We still had relations with Korea and China, and some with the Netherlands. We banned all those foreign books.
A prime example of Japan's desire to avoid Western influence was the Sakoku Edict of 1635, passed by Tokugawa Ieyasu. Some key points of the Edict of 1635 are that Catholicism was strictly forbidden. Trade restrictions and strict limitations on goods were set to limit ports open to trade, and the Japanese were to be kept within Japan's own boundaries.
Welcome back to ShamWow. I'm your host, Eric, and I'm going to show you how amazing Japan and the ShamWow is.
Look at how China holds up to Western influence.
Oh, look at that. Ooh. Is this what you want?
Now let's see how Russia holds up to Western influence. Ooh, not so good. Let's see how Japan does.
Bam, ShamWow.
Ugh, tired of this happening? You should try using Japan.
Let's hear it for the class systemo of Japano. Under the rigid system of feudalism, life was simply stupendous. Individuals not among the 1% had absolutely no rights, and the social order was unimaginably strict, with violent punishments ensuing even if one minor offense took place, such as a public beheading in which your head would be removed and placed on a post of some sort for birds to peck at and people to ridicule, or a public stabbing in which a samurai would stab you and move his sword in a zigzag formation through your innards and then cut off your head only so that you die faster. Rape was legal, and a countless number of people were burned alive for minuscule misdemeanors as well, but really, life was marvelous. Our caste system is topped with the shogun, our fearless Aquarian leader, Tokugawa Ieyasu. The Japanese emperor technically falls above him on the social pyramid, but we'll get to that later. The shogun is known for being the most powerful member of the emperor's military clan, and he is the actual political ruler of Japan. Working for him were the people found in the next category on our thick pyramid, known as the samurai. These men made up the warrior class along with the daimyos, who were military leaders responsible for carrying out the shogun's orders amongst the warrior class. Although they were granted a high status in society, they were given little political power, for the government was primarily ruled by the shogun and the emperor only. Their economic needs were met by the peasants, who make up the next category on the pyramid, and roughly 90% of the Japanese population during the Edo period. Although peasants had no political power and were extremely poor, they were still valued because they were responsible for producing the food that kept Japan functioning. The final section of the pyramid is made up of the artisans and the merchants. Artisans devoted their lives to hand-making a variety of goods, such as artwork, cooking pots, and farming tools, but they were still less respected in society because they did not produce anything essential like the peasants, who produced food. The merchants were looked down upon the least in Japanese society, for the Japanese elite believed that merchantry provided nothing of value to the empire, and that merchants simply lived off the efforts of others' work. This explains why they were forced to live in a secluded area separate from the rest of Japan, only being allowed to interact with the other classes for business purposes. Now back to our emperor. He's a good man, he's doing his best, he's happy to be here, but he is really only the face of Japan. He is the most respected person in Japan, but the shogun is the guy with the real political power. Under feudalism, the economy was able to function properly, and Japan was able to become a stronger empire. The social system provided a sense of stability and national pride for the people of Japan, for they were able to feel like their actions could make a difference and positively affect the empire as a whole. Neo-Confucianism was extremely popular in Japan. It dates back to the Tang Dynasty, when Chinese thinkers, such as Han Yu, began to incorporate ideas from Buddhism and Taoism when writing Confucian texts. The result was Neo-Confucianism, or a new form of Confucianism. These two belief systems were similar in that their central belief was that a person should always be striving to the best they can be, but Neo-Confucianism incorporated more Buddhist aspects, such as the idea of attaining spiritual transcendence. Neo-Confucianists believed that the correct way of living, or the heavenly way, is expressed in two forms, principle, li, and matter, qi. According to Neo-Confucian thinking, li is perfect, but human beings exist in the material world and know things through their qi. Therefore, human beings sometimes make mistakes and conflicts occur. To avoid these conflicts, individuals need to work to understand the li of all things.
Okay, Japan was great because of the Genraku era. The Genraku era is a flourishing time of the economy as well as urban life and culture. Some things you can see are the kabuki theater styling as well as woodblock printing, literature, and the bunraku theater, puppet theater.
Art is my passion. Through trade, Japan became acquainted with the European way of life and felt inclined to study it and incorporate aspects of it into their society. There were a number of prominent scholars, such as Arai Hakuzuki, that made the studying possible and helped Japan progress. This benefited Japan because it allowed them to be exposed to the scientific and technological revolutions occurring in Europe, which helps explain the speedy modernization that took place in Japan during the 1800s. The study of Europe and its sciences, called Rangaku, or Dutch learning, became popular during the Edo period, despite extremely limited contact with Europe.
Also during this time period, the function of literature as a means of social intercourse broadened. The Edo period also saw developments such as the perfection of the poetic form known as the haiku by Matsuo Bushao. When will my husband return from war?
After Tokugawa Ieyasu unified Japan, the role of women completely changed. Their samurai husbands, who were no longer fighting in the war, were now home and became bureaucrats. women were now encouraged to stay at home and supervise their children's education, as well as stay home and provide food and clean homes for their husbands.
Let's hear it for Japan!
This is awful. This is really awful. I'm leaving. I'm going. Bye, Caroline.